Hi guys, so today I'm in a BMW i3. It's a 2017 model year and it's the one with the range of about 80 to 100 miles, obviously dependent on your driving, depending on the weather and things like that. So it's the first electric car we've done on the channel, so let's take it for a spin and see what we think. So first of all, we've got the, before we start, we've got the key on it is like a flat card, and we've got the options for unlocking, locking on the boots and a smart function which we can enable if we want. That's just a card. It's a keyless go system, so there's not anywhere with a that we need to put the key to start the engine or anything like that. And we've got this sort of column on the side of the steering wheel where we've got a start stop button, so we press that once. We had to get the audible notification so the motor's ready. It's a bit different than obviously a combustion engine car. We'd turn the key, we press the start button and we'd hear the engine fire. We're not in that situation with this. Everything's ready now, we're ready to go. It's a bit of a strange experience. There's no noise other than the air conditioning, and we're ready to go. So it's a case of foot on the brake and just turn this lever on the side of the steering wheel to drive. And there's no noticeable audio change. We've got an electronic parking brake switch. It doesn't come off automatically as we start driving, so foot on the brake and release that, and away we go. So we're in utter silence, and is this the future really? I mean, I appreciate this model does 80 to 100 miles on a range, so it's not an amazing range. We're not talking something that's gonna, get us to the south of France on a range. I mean, the more expensive cars you got, this now on a 2017 is worth about 18,000, it's done 40,000 miles. If you were to compare that with something like a Tesla that had done 40,000 miles 2 years old, you'd be paying a lot more. You'd probably be paying double that for like a Model S, for example. Now the long range on the Model S and the Model X and even the Model 3 now is said to be between 300 and 400 miles. Now I think anything with book figures of any vehicle, whether we're talking combustion engine or electric vehicle, we've got sort of the manufacturers say the urban I'm a little out of breath. So, turns out the body on this i3, right, I've been running down the road because I'm driving along and I hear a sort of tap, and I thought, what was that? When I do these car videos, I tend to have a camera on the side window or behind my head or something like that. I tend to have the one that I'm recording with here for this shot, and I tend to have a camera on the roof, or on the bonnet sometimes, which just gets for different shots as we're driving along. That camera's fastened on with a mount that's got sort of 3 suction cups on it, so that it makes sure that it stays solid to the vehicle, honest. So that was on, and all of it, it's a fiberglass body on this. I think all the vehicles I've had it on before must be metal, and when it's on metal it grips very, very well. This was gripping of a fashion. It didn't seem like it was coming undone, but obviously we're driving down the road and it did come undone. The thing is with them cameras that I bought, I didn't know whether to go for a GoPro or something like that, and I went for like a cheap nondescript name camera from China. Someone was selling them on Facebook Marketplace, them on Amazon, or on eBay, sort of 40 quid. It does a 4K footage at I think 30 frames a second. So, but the idea is that they're waterproof, it chucks it down while you're on the drive, and in theory they're shockproof. And this has just been dropped from the vehicle of a car, and it landed in the middle of the road. A few cars drove round it, over it, and whatever. They didn't actually hit it and go over it with a wheel, but it seems pretty intact, and it was still recording when I picked it up, so I'm quite impressed with that. I know it's a side note. So where was I? So the book figures that you get from a manufacturer are always going to be, optimistic, and they have had to change them because they were always done in a wind tunnel with, lots and lots of parts of the car missing and done in the most optimum conditions. But with the Volkswagen emissions scandal, everything changed, and they have had to actually try and get more real world figures now. the urban, extra urban and combined figures are never completely true and accurate, so we all know that. The same with the range on these things. So if they say they're going to do 100 miles, maybe get 70 out of them. If a Tesla says it's going to do 400, maybe we'll get 340, 350 out of them, something like that. But it is again down to your driving style, and it's down to, you know, have you got the radio on, have you got the navigation on, have you got the air conditioning on, the heated seats on. In winter, when we've got the air conditioning on full whack to try and warm us up on the heated seats on the way to work, the batteries aren't going to last as long. So it's about sort of getting used to that and working with that really, and understanding that I've got a friend who wears a big coat and a hat and drives along in the winter to sort of save his battery life. I think BMWs have got the 3 and the 5 series where they've got the hybrids. So with the hybrids, they've got the option of doing like a 25, 30 mile range, and then after that they're on 25 and 30 mile range, and then they flick over to a petrol combustion engine, which is great because you don't get the range anxiety that you get with an electric vehicle, where you think, you know, when we're going to be able to, you know, get where I need to be, have I got to find a charging station or anything like that. But when they do flick over to the petrol combustion engine, they're nowhere near as economical. That you don't get the same tax benefits that you do with regards to vehicle exercise duty, your old tax disc as it were. With this i3, it's completely free. We're zero on the tax. Whereas if you go for a new 3 or 5 series, well, a new 5 series that's 40 grand plus list price, you'll pay the 160 premium car tax because it's over 40 grand, plus any car tax that's due because of the fact that it's got a combustion engine. It's got some sort of emissions, but this is zero emissions, completely electric, zero car tax. So as long as the vehicle is, if it's older than 2017 and it's less than 40 grand list price, there's no car tax to pay on it. So, you know, that is that's definitely a benefit. I think the thing that's the weirdest to get used to at first with an electric car is the fact that you've got the regenerative braking. So whilst what happens is, as you're driving along, as you come off the accelerator, the vehicle starts to slow down, but in doing that, it does put a little bit of charge back in the batteries. Not much on a full tank. You might notice sort of, or a full charge, you might notice sort of 5 miles going back in there is not massive. But what it does do is the motor, because it stops going forward, you really see that engine braking, as it were, with a combustion engine. So normally with the engine braking, you start to, if you down gear and you come off, you start to see the engine braking a little bit and the speed being reduced. But with these things, you come off the brake, I mean, right, okay, so we're going on 26 mile an hour now. If I come off the accelerator, 23, 20, 19, 15, we're braking quite quick without actually touching the brake pedal. So obviously the total running cost of these things is reduced with regards to, as long as it's in warranty and you're not worried about drivetrain batteries, things like that, which, I mean, Tesla offer an 8-year warranty on their batteries. If you're not worrying about that, I mean, you're not worrying so much about servicing costs, because you're not having to drop any oil and changing the air filters and things like that. And you're not worrying about brake pads because you're hardly using them. I mean, I've been driving this now for knocking on 15 minutes, and I've not used any brake pads at all really. But if I was coming to a stop at traffic lights, you might, but even then it will bring you to a stop just with the engine, the motor in reverse. So it's a weird thing to get used to. So you've got this thing on the side of the steering wheel where you've got your drive, neutral, and reverse. You've got your start stop there. You've got your park gear there. And like I say, you've got your electronic parking brake down where your sort of gear stick would be in a traditional car. You've got different driving modes of comfort, eco plus. You've got the BMW iDrive system, which everyone knows and loves from their what they're using, the 3 and 5 and 7 series across the whole range. The infotainment screen's a little small, considering the fact that we've got this massive dashboard with nothing in it because we don't need to. I think the infotainment system could do with being a little bit bigger personally. It's still a decent size, but I just think they could have done more with that. With regards to the door cards and the seats, they're a cloth, which some people prefer leather, some people prefer cloth, so it's a personal taste. I do think they're very futuristic looking seats, being the electric vehicle. There's so much room as well. I don't mean it's a massive car, because it's not, it's a small car, but there's so much room around where traditionally the gearbox would be, and taking up that sort of centre panel. So in the back we've got no hump for a middle seat passenger, and in the front there's nothing there. There's a big gap that I can sort of put my left leg in if I want to. This is quite a high specification i3, so we've got the electric windows, electric folding mirrors, all that sort of carry on like you'd normally expect. But we've also got the heated seats. We've We've got the heated mirrors, we've got the automatic wipers, automatic lights. It's got front and rear parking sensors with the graphic display. It's a nice car, and it's well equipped. Obviously we've got air conditioning and stuff like that, but with these electric ones you do have to be careful with your heated seats and your air conditioning, because you've got to be mindful that you're not running the battery out. So I'd maybe drive it along with the window up instead. But it really is a nice car. It's not got a pan roof or anything like that. Just very basic, but of a nice specification, if you see what I mean. We've got the little suicide doors on the back, which some people love, some people hate. I think with these little cars, I think they're a really nice touch, and they're a bit of a novelty as well, but they're a nice way of getting into the back without swinging big doors open, because the door's only half the size to get into the back, and it's a nice way of getting in easy, and they open properly and everything like that. So yeah, I think it's very well appointed and very well designed. I think that, you know, the boot space at the back's, for the size of the vehicle, is fantastic. It's not a massive boot, it's not a Range Rover's boot, it's not an XC90's boot, but it's a decent sized boot. And you've also got up front what they call a fruit, or a frunk in America. So we've got this space where traditionally the engine would be. Now in there you've got some tools and some, you know, bits and bats that you would expect that you want to carry around underneath in the tyre well, I suppose, in a traditional combustion car. But you've just got a little bit of space. It's not massive, but it's enough to throw an overnight bag in, or a bag of shopping in, to stop it rolling around in the boot. So it's just that extra bit of space really, and we always need more space in our houses and our cars, and we've never got enough space. So again there now, I'm just coming up to some traffic lights, and I just took my foot off the brake because there was plenty, I could see they're on red and there's plenty of notice. Foot off the accelerator, sorry. And we're just sat zero, and we're just sat still. I've literally not touched the brake at all. And it's a weird sensation to get used to at first, because you always come off the gas as you're driving along, but not with the intention of slowing down. So you come off the gas in this, and you're slowing down, and you're like, oh, and you're a bit kangarooing at first when you're back and forward in it. But if you think these things are the future, this is where we're going. I think it's 2045. The government's target was to get every new car being electric that's coming out. So we sort of need to get used to this sort of stuff and embrace it. And you know, I think, personally, being a petrol head, I love the sound of a petrol car. I'll even love the sound of a diesel car, if I'm honest. A lot of people don't, but I love the sound of a proper engine. And I don't just mean a sporty engine where you put your foot down and floor it and you hear that engine whip up, or the turbo whip up, or something like that. It's not so much about that. It's more to do with the fact that, again, I've not touched the brakes. It's crazy, this car. It's more to do with the fact that I like to hear an engine, I like to hear the gear change, I like to hear and feel that I'm involved. Sometimes I love driving automatic vehicles, but sometimes I love a manual vehicle just for the fact that you're involved in the journey really, and you're deciding when that gear change happens. And I think that's really why they've put the flappy paddles on a lot of cars now on automatic, so that you can knock it into manual, or you can at least interject. And I know you can floor the gas pedal, and you'll drop a gear in that respect, but I think people like the fact of the paddles, and they can completely control that gear change. But this doesn't have any gears. We're in first gear constantly. Whilst we're on that point, the 0 to 60 on this thing, I think 7.3 seconds, which for the size of the vehicle, which, let's have it right, we're talking the size of something like a Polo, maybe a little bit bigger than a Polo. For the size of what it is, I just think it's crazy the speed it'll go. Now I know that's not fast for an electric car. I mean, if you look at one of these sort of, I know we keep going back to Tesla, they're sort of setting the gold standard with electric cars, that's all they do. But the sort of Model S's and the Model X's that have got this ludicrous mode on them, you can be talking 2.5 seconds, not 60, which, you know, you're going to struggle to get a combustion engine that can keep up with that. But because again, I've just done it again now, I'm turning right, so I've slowed down, but I've not touched the brakes, and it's enough to get me around that bend without causing any drama and feeling like I need to, you know, add to the braking a little bit with a brake. So yeah, I think, you know, it's not fast for an electric car, but it's fast enough. I mean, on British roads, how fast you need to get to 60 miles an hour? Everyone loves to get there as quick as possible, you know, and speed up, but realistically, there's speed cameras everywhere. You're going to get yourself, and you don't want to be having an accident. So I think 7.4 is something this quick, it's something this small, is fantastic, and it just gets you there quickly. If you need to put your foot down to overtake something, you can do. It's just I lovely car, really. I'm really impressed by it, and I think if I was looking for something as a second car or something, if I was doing a commute of 30 and 40 miles a day each way, I think you could charge it every night and it wouldn't cost you much to do. It just really is a lovely car. I'm really impressed with it. So I think we'll leave that there for today. Please make sure you subscribe to the channel and like the video, and I'll see you all very soon.